On this week's episode, we talk about the fallout of Extreme Rules, the continuation of The Shield vs. Evolution, Adam Rose's debut, and was Daniel Bryan made to look weak on this Monday's Raw? All of this and more now on this edition of Byte That. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 37 of Byte That, the semi-somewhat, maybe, international professional wrestling podcast where we bring you the ups and downs of that which we love, which is the world of professional wrestling. As you can tell by the sound of my voice, I am not Juan Court. He is actually out this week. So this is Ryan McNulty from Boston, Massachusetts, filling in as the main host. And with me, of course, is the Mountie himself, Mr. Keith Poshik, coming all the way from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
Yep, you couldn't get rid of me.
No, not if we tried, unfortunately.
Believe me, I know you're trying, but not yet.
So we got a good amount of stuff to cover today, but before we jump into that, we just want to remind you, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast. Of course, check out our great video that we put up just a couple of weeks ago, our top 10 favorite wrestling video games. It's doing quite well. It's one of our best produced videos for sure, so definitely check that out. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at ByteThatCast. And don't forget, you can get this podcast not only on our YouTube, but as well as iTunes and Stitcher by searching Byte That. So we are coming off of Extreme Rules and a Monday Night Raw. So first, let's just jump right into Extreme Rules. And the first thing I want to talk about is WEElc. Now, Keith, you didn't have a chance to check this match out, correct? You unfortunately had to miss the pre-show.
That is correct, and I am very disappointed in as such.
Yes, the only thing I could show him was that an animated GIF of just that insane spot with is a GIF.
Is it GIF or okay? Let's pause the show here for a minute. Is it GIF or is it GIF?
Is it GIF or the weird thing is I will actually say both. Like sometimes I'll say GIF and sometimes I'll say GIF.
So you don't commit. You won't commit in life, is what you're telling me.
I think I may have commitment issues, actually, to be honest with you.
I think we're learning a lot about each other right now. We should continue this.
Yes. But what do you say? I'll go with that.
I say GIF.
GIF.
I think it's GIF.
We're going to say GIF, because you know what? GIF's a peanut butter anyway, so let's go with
exactly.
GIF.
Exactly. Fucking peanut butter.
So I showed him the animated GIF of that insane spot where... was it Hornswoggle going through the table? Or El Torito kind of dove.
It was like it was El Torito diving onto
it was onto Jinder Mahal.
Yeah, yes. It was like Jinder and the Matadors going through like two tables and two ladders on the outside. And that was insane.
It is a crazy spot. But then after looking at that GIF multiple times, I realized how kind of illogical it was that it took two Matadors in El Torito to put Jinder Mahal through all three of them sacrificed themselves just to put one member of 3MB through two tables and two ladders.
So you're bringing logistics into a WEElc match.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Forgive me.
Next time that you're at a creative meeting or whatever, you can bring that up with JB Elf or Micro Cole.
I will try and do that, but I'm not going to take anything away from that spot because you can throw logic out the window anyway for this match because it was awesome. It far exceeded my expectations. They had the mini step ladders. They had slightly bigger ladders. They had they had the announce table, the little announce table with the three little announcers. I think it was Micro Cole, JB Elf, and Jerry Smaller.
Something
Smaller,
like that.
Something, yes. So, I mean, they even did, Hornswoggle did a dive through the mini announce table. Drew McIntyre literally jumped out of the ring, did a flip, and went through a mini table. It was just insane. You have to check this match out. And if anyone missed the pre-show, I highly recommend checking out. It was one of the coolest things they've done, and a lot of it was played more for laughs, but it doesn't take away from how legitimately crazy some of it was, and some of these bumps were very reminiscent of legitimate TLC matches, from back in the early 2000s.
I think that's why WEElc worked. Like, once again, I haven't seen it, but because it was supposed to be for laughs, it was supposed to be that fun match that you have a good time with. So if it succeeded with that and ended up being a pretty good match, then they hit the nail right on the head.
Exactly, and I think this is easily up there as one of the best pre-show matches they've done. I think the only thing that could even come close is there was a tag team title match several months ago with the Shield way back.
The Shield and the Usos.
Yes, exactly.
At Payback, yeah.
Yeah, that was probably the only other pre-show match that I feel like was really on par with how awesome it was. And I really hope they continue this El Torito Hornswoggle feud. It looked like they tried to...
Where do they go from here? Where do they go from here with that?
Hornswoggle's got to get some wins in, though, because it's very one-sided. But I think you could still keep milking this feud.
Does Hornswoggle have to get wins? Like, he's a member of 3MB. Think about that. What's 3MB's nature? If
they want to drag this feud out a little bit longer, which I hope they do,
yeah.
you gotta trade some wins here and there. It looked like they might have ended it. I mean, they sort of just did that little Cinco de Mayo thing on Raw this week. But, it didn't exactly feel like everything's settled, so maybe they're going to continue it. I think they should, and just continue these gimmick matches, because I think they could run for at least 2 more pay-per-views and still keep it fresh. And maybe,
I mean, why not just make all these gimmick matches? Like, they could probably even go till SummerSlam. Like, imagine like a little cage where they just take like a fence that you would put around your house and then turn that into a cage, and just like maybe a ladder match where it's still hanging from the ceiling, but it's hanging at like normal human being height from the ring and stuff like that. There's a lot of places they could still go with this.
And it should conclude in a mini Hell in a Cell match.
Agreed. It's like the natural next step for a Kennel from Hell match. Just have it in like a kennel.
Exactly. So they definitely still have some potential with this, and I think this match itself should have probably been on the main card. I mean, it was getting a great crowd reaction, and at the very least, for being at the beginning of the show, it at least really got the crowd going. But for the quality of match, it should have definitely been higher up there.
What would you have bumped from the show then to put it on the...
I mean, I would have even put the triple threat match, the RVD, Cesaro, Jack Swagger match, which was a great match in its own right. But
I disagree. I think that's a big match, especially because the goal of that match was to build Cesaro. I think you needed to have that on the pay-per-view itself.
That is a good point. So we're going to move right on,
sinker.
Because definitely check out WEElc if you haven't, but we're going to move along into a cage match that happened. Of course, it was the Wyatt family's Bray Wyatt taking on John Cena, and Bray Wyatt beat John Cena. But how this...
Called it before WrestleMania.
I think a lot of us saw it coming, but I don't think anyone really thought it was going to end the way that it did. But before we really talk about the ending itself, let's sort of just kind of talk about how this match went, sort of the pace of it, the length, and, sort of the psychology.
Whether we like it or not, John Cena is still one of the company's top guys. He's still that big guy. Like, at this point, you could honestly put him on the level of like a Triple H or the Undertaker when it comes to like kayfabe strength, basically. So it was kind of weird having all of the Wyatt family needing to take out John Cena, but at the same time, I think it's the only way that they could make Bray Wyatt win and still keep John Cena strong at the same time.
But was it overkill?
Maybe a little bit. It wasn't overkill until Eric Rowan went to the top of the cage and got thrown into it. Like, everything started to fall apart kind of near the end of the match. Like, first Cena tried going out, and then like Eric Rowan was stopping him, and then all of a sudden Cena just walks right back into the cage. And the whole time you're kind of thinking, well, just frickin' jump on the guy. Your feet are gonna hit the ground. He's gonna stop your fall, and you'll still win the match. Why don't you do that, John? And then, then they threw Eric Rowan in the ring, and that's when it seemed to be a little bit much.
Yeah, exactly. I think, first and foremost, this match ran just a little bit too long. Probably about 5 minutes too long, I would say. And I think this was just a point, if you looked at, because Was this the third to last match?
No, it was. Yes, it was actually because it
Yes.
went Shield Evolution, Wyatt, Divas main event. Right.
Because I remember just looking at the clock, at the start of the match, and there was still a lot of time left on the show. So I feel like they could have allotted times for matches a little, they could have changed it up a little bit, because I think this match just got a little bit too much time, and it suffered for it. And I think it just got a little ridiculous with how many times John Cena was trying to escape, and how many times it looked like he basically had it won if it wasn't for interference. I mean, this happened several times.
Now, here's a question for you. I was kind of thinking about this during the match, but is Bray Wyatt's whole thing in the ring that he does getting a little old to you? Like, after every big move, he goes and he panders to the crowd, or dancing with the limp body and that kind of stuff. Like, he's starting to do it every single week. And is it getting to become a little more of a hindrance on the match itself?
I don't think it's grown that tired yet. I do think the whole song, I mean, we talked about this last week, the whole, whole world in your
his
hands
yeah.
song, that is starting to get a little old. I fully expect them to milk that for all it's worth, but
of course.
it is getting a little tired, and I agree. You gotta kind of change up your stick a little bit, but those are also kind of his signature things. So I don't know. I think they're okay. They haven't really, hurt matches for me, I would say.
You don't think it ruins the pace a little bit at all? Like, sometimes in matches, he'll get going and then he'll just stop, and then, I don't know, it almost feels weird at the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like, though, that the crowd is somewhat involved in his matches, though, because he does have a connection with the crowd.
Yeah.
They always react to things that he does.
That actually brings up a really good point. So I go watch these pay-per-views at a movie theater with my uncle. We have a good time, have a couple brewskis, have a wrestling good old time. But when Bray Wyatt's entrance happened, half of that movie theater started clapping along with the entrance, even though they're not in the arena. They're in a movie theater in Winnipeg. Ooh, look out. But everybody started clapping along. This whole Bray Wyatt getting over thing is obviously working.
That's cool. It's actually really cool that they actually do that in Canada, and maybe they do it some other areas around the world, but
where the network doesn't exist yet.
Yes, exactly. But that is sort of because back when WrestleMania 1 was out, there was no pay-per-view, so there was a thing called closed circuit television. So people would go to theaters to watch it. So that's sort of the last of a dying breed you have over there, is that kind of experience. Because I've never had that type of experience of watching wrestling with a large sort of eclectic crowd of people. Some people you know, some you don't know. Well, actually, I did go to a bar to watch a pay-per-view, so I guess that's sort of similar.
But that's still different, because you can still drink there. You can't drink in a movie theater. The drinking aspect kind of brings people closer together. You're all sober people.
In that theater, I'm sure the whole theater setting it's a different experience than a bar
dark.
setting.
It's dark, and you're all sitting there with the stereo, the big movie stereo going. It's a very enclosed experience still, even if you're in a theater with a bunch of people.
But that is cool, and I'd actually like to, maybe do that sometime. But
come to Winnipeg.
I know. I may have to. I really don't know any place around here that does that. I just don't think wrestling is that big. Maybe here, I don't know. Maybe
I don't know how
is.
many people were at that bar you were at when you were at WrestleMania.
There was a good amount of people, but a lot of them weren't. There was sort of this side room where we were all kind of watching the pay-per-view, and then there was another area where some people were watching it, but then other people were watching other things. So it wasn't this huge crowd, but there was a sizable amount of people there to watch the pay-per-view. But to jump back into
we digress.
Point, yes. But that's good. Hey, let's with two people, it's more like a conversation. So we're gonna go in many different directions. But let's jump back into the focus of, we were talking about the Wyatt family's connection with the crowd, and I think you made a great point. The fact that even at that theater setting you were in, people were into it and clapping along, is that he has made that connection with the crowd. That's something a lot of superstars really want to do, is sort of find that find that place where the crowd is with them. I think that's part of Bray Wyatt's shtick, is like those things that he does. It helps get the crowd involved a little more.
Yeah.
Maybe he needs to fine tune it more. Maybe he needs to do a little less of that, a little more of this, so that it doesn't grow tired or whatever, or freshen things up. Mm-hmm. But he's at a good place, and maybe he just needs a little bit more work.
Agreed.
So the actual ending of the match, though, how did you feel about that?
It was weird. It made the whole thing from Raw seem like a lot more sense. It was just something that they were using to, like, so it wouldn't be a complete shock to, like, the ending of that match. It was just kind of, like, easing people into that. But it was still weird to think about, like, I don't know, this is where wrestling logic comes in, because by the end of that match, like, with what happened at the end of that match, a child scared John Cena so much that he just wouldn't walk right out that door. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. He could have literally just, like,
kept walking.
He could have fallen over himself and won the match.
Mm-hmm. He could have still kept looking at the kid, walk out the door, and then be like, what the hell, and still win the match.
Yeah, he could be just as scared and get away just as quickly, but just move in a different direction and win the match.
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree. And I honestly think this goes into just the deeper problem of cage matches. Just get rid of that freaking door. It is so stupid. It completely kills the match. What's the point of, there's no, the only way to win is to escape or pin, when there's a stupid referee sitting there opening the door and closing it for you? It completely destroys the match. And the cage match, it's supposed to be this definitive match, or at least it used to be. Yeah. But when you have more ways to win than you do in a normal match, like, how effective is it really? I think it'd be better if it's just escape only, or pin only, or even just escape and pin, but no door.
But even the pin part of a cage match is kind of weird. Like, if you're gonna beat a guy by pinfall, why have a steel cage there?
At least you can kind of have that no outside interference, or they can't escape the ring.
In, like, even that Cena and Wyatt match didn't really prove,
let's go into the whole wrestling kayfabe world where it's supposed to be, no one can interfere, but it's also, you see a lot of heels and stuff powder out of the ring and, take a breather. This, it ensures that they can't get out of the ring for any type of purpose or run away from you. So it's definitive, but the door just kills it, because you have Bray Wyatt just kind of hit the Sister Abigail, and then he just steps out, and it's very anticlimactic. Then if you had a scenario where he climbed over the top or whatever,
or even there pinned was a pin. John Cena,
or there's a pin. The ending itself with the kid, I think you were right, where it's just it doesn't make any sense, and I know they felt like they had to have some sort of gimmicky way to end it. I don't know. Maybe it'd be cooler if there was like a kid at the top of the cage when he was trying to climb out. But I agree with the whole door thing when he's right there.
Yeah. And question, what do you fully understand what they were going for with the demon voice? How he's like, like, what were they going for there?
I think they were just trying to make it scarier, because if it was just a kid singing into a regular microphone, it would have came off even
made it kind of dumb as far as I'm concerned.
It was really cheesy,
especially like in that interview after the match. Like, he still had that voice. It's like this little demon baby Johnny guy,
little Johnny. And that's why I tweeted during the show. Remember, @Byte that cast. I tweeted during the show, they should do Little Jimmy versus Little Johnny at WrestleMania 31. I think that'd be a great main event.
Totally no laws against that or anything like that.
You could have a little kid face an invisible child at WrestleMania. How you can't get that hurt,
I guess.
But anyway, the ending to the match, I think we both agree, was kind of a letdown, and with it running a little too long, wasn't the greatest match. But hey, Bray Wyatt won. We're definitely going to see this feud continue.
Yeah, so you just said it yourself. We're going to see this continue. Where do you think it goes from here? Like, is it going to be this weird thing where every month John Cena and Bray Wyatt kind of trade the uphill battle? Like, oh, Bray Wyatt won this month, and so now Cena's going to fight this uphill battle to get the people back. And now Cena wins at the next pay-per-view, so now Bray Wyatt's going to win this, or has to win this uphill battle against Cena.
Well, I did just read a report that said that this feud is possibly going to continue even after Payback. Which is good, because I still think there's plenty left with this feud. I think they can still keep it fresh. I agree, they should trade wins, because too many times there's feuds that are just sort of 2 out of 3. It's like, you win one, I win one, and then whoever wins the last one, they win the feud, I guess. Yeah, let's trade wins. Let's have Cena win the next one, Wyatt win the next one, and then that leaves us at SummerSlam, where you could have the definitive match. Have it be a Hell in a Cell if they're not going to do that pay-per-view anymore.
It totally just hit me. You know how we always joke about, like, Super Cena and stuff like that? They're totally turning this into, like, the plot of a superhero movie. You have Super Cena, everybody's favorite, and then the new, fresh villain comes along that, like, gets everybody's love and admiration. And then, in Super Cena's darkest hour, he comes back and saves all the people and ends up vanquishing the great villain. Like, they're basically making a superhero movie.
We've had a lot of superhero references with this feud, because with
Batman last week.
Last week's Batman quote. But yeah, exactly. They can really keep this going, go back and forth with it, and do you think we're going to go back to a singles match with this at Payback, or are they going to up the ante and give us another stipulation?
I think they have to have stipulations, like, over and over. Even if it is a one-on-one match, the match is going to have some sort of stipulation, like, for little Johnny's soul or something like that.
That might be a good route, though, is to sort of have some sort of whoever wins the match type of stipulation, and not necessarily like a hardcore match or a ladder match. No. Something different like that. I actually really do like that idea. But it's definitely going to seem weird if they sort of just trot back to a regular singles match. But we'll have to see. So
time will tell.
Yes. I mean, Bray Wyatt's character certainly allows for types of gimmick matches, so that it's sort of open for that. So we're going to move on to what ended up being the main event of the show, which, if we want to quickly talk about the placement of matches on the card, we got Daniel Bryan versus Kane for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Mm-hmm. Were you happy to see this as the last match on the card?
I was very surprised by it, in complete honesty, but yeah, I was happy it was there. Like, say what you will about the feud between Kane and D-Bry, it shows that they value Daniel Bryan above the Shield Evolution match. That's the match that they're choosing to close their pay-per-views with. It's giving more meaning to the WWE World Heavyweight Championship and Daniel Bryan as its champion.
I agree, and I was glad that it was last. I was very surprised when I saw the Shield versus Evolution come on.
I mean, that was the first big match of the night. That was even before Wyatt Cena.
Mm-hmm. And I think they spaced that out on purpose so that they would have the most energy in those key points. And I think it was a good idea, because the WWE World Heavyweight title, it's still relatively new when it comes to the fact that it was recently unified.
Yeah.
And I think they want to instill that credibility. They don't want to go the route when CM Punk was champion and he was almost never main eventing the show. So even when they had a match that a lot of people probably viewed as bigger than the title, I think they want to keep that value strong, so they have it as the last match.
Yes.
Now, getting into the match itself, I think for what's basically everyone thought was this B-level feud, I thought the match was really good.
You're talking about Daniel Bryan and Kane.
We're on Daniel Bryan versus
Kane. I'm like,
B-level
feud. I'm like, Shield Evolution? What the hell are you on? No. Yeah.
Maybe, hold on. Excuse me. It was a B-plus level feud.
Oh, well played, sir. But yeah, it was a great match. I mean, going into it was the whole Extreme Rules thing, so they were going to do something out there. And they definitely went that route. I think that's like the first time a TV has ever exploded in a match.
Yeah, and you could still hear it like popping and stuff. Like, in like Michael Cole's like headset kind of like bugged out for a little bit.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know what was going on.
I have a question. I can't
Yes.
remember if this was in the Shield or in the Shield match or in the Daniel Bryan match, but at some point a cameraman got knocked over and then like a freaking trooper, like he didn't even lose any like stability on the shot. He just kept filming. I don't know which match you were
I
in,
can't remember
cameraman,
which.
but you are a hero.
I think it might have been Shield Evolution. I'm not sure though, because I think it was over near the announcer's desk.
Yeah.
I think so.
Might
But
have
anyway,
been. But anyway.
yes, back into Daniel Bryan versus Kane. I thought they did the right things because they knew they would have to sort of pull out all the stops, pull out some definitely interesting choices for what they were going to do to really get the crowd into it. So they went backstage, like Kane threw that TV in there, and a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah, and I mean, we even said this last week, like, they're building Kane up to be this huge monster that Daniel Bryan basically had to throw everything at him to win. He, like, hit him with a kendo stick, God knows how many times, beat him with a tire iron, drove his carcass back to the ring, hit the diving headbutt, and then put him through a flaming table to win the match. Now, to focus on that flaming table, what did you think of that spot?
It was great. It was totally unexpected.
Yeah,
because we haven't
totally.
seen the flaming table since WrestleMania 22, I want to say.
Yeah, well, no, technically the last time we saw it was at ECW One Night Stand at, during the Edge, Mick Foley, Tommy Dreamer, Terry Funk match.
That was after that?
Yes. That might have been a flaming barbed wire baseball bat, though, because the whole premise of that feud was because Mick Foley and Edge had the greatest hardcore match of all time. So yeah, that's how.
I don't think it was so it was a flaming baseball bat?
Maybe, or something like that. Something was on fire at some point during that match, and they hit Mick Foley with it, and he was on fire, and it was a bad time, probably.
Yes. Well, anyway, the flaming table spot was definitely welcomed because it has not been seen in a long time. Just to go into little smarky wrestling mode, my only complaint was that they did the spot so quick. It was like tables on fire.
It was
boom,
weird.
He's through the table.
Like how Kane went through the table was actually kind of weird. Like Daniel Bryan basically, he went like the exact opposite of the Ultimate Warrior and shook the ropes, and then Kane just went through the table. Like, I figured that Daniel Bryan would come, like, hit him with the knee or something, and then that's how Kane would go through the table.
Back in.
Exactly, but he just kind of, like, shook the ropes and then splat through the table.
I think they just wanted to hit that spot immediately. I mean, I don't know what the logistics are if they don't want to have the flames going too long or whatever. But I think it would have been cool if there was sort of that imminent danger of who's going through for a little bit longer.
I think they, like, it's a table on fire that's still wood. Eventually it's gonna perish, and plus you have fans. Jesus Christ knows how close to that fire. Like, who knows what can happen. I understand why they, like, and then they put it out immediately after. Fire is bad.
It's a delicate situation, and you have to be very careful with it. So that being said, it was still awesome. I really also appreciated the whole, because, you know, he drives him in the forklift back into the ring. Mm-hmm. At that point in time, I was thinking, oh, okay, this is the end of the match. That was going to be it, but no. He's going to dump him in the ring, pin him, and that's the end. But the crowd was sort of they were about to be lost there. They were, you know, he was going to lose them. But then when he started climbing the forklift, everyone was into it. Yeah. The jump from the forklift was awesome. I mean, that could have ended the match, and I still would have been perfectly happy with it. And they do the flaming table spot. So it was a great match. Far exceeded my expectations.
So now, were you okay with the way they ended Payback as far as that thing goes? Like, a couple months ago, everybody was pissed at the end of whichever pay-per-view it was that the Big Show came and ruined the main event.
Battleground?
Yeah, Battleground, I believe. And that's like it was done to just further a storyline at the end of a pay-per-view. Now, while not as extreme as that, this was kind of the same thing. Like, it didn't end in a big Daniel Bryan moment. It ended with Kane sitting up and then his theme playing to, like, play us off the show, progressing the storyline. Were you okay with that? Should it have waited till Raw, or?
I think I was okay with it because we got a definitive ending to the match.
Yeah, that's true.
If the match had ended in some BS, then yes. Mm-hmm. But he won the match completely fair and square, clean as a whistle, and then Kane comes up at the end like it's still not over.
Yeah.
So I was okay with it. It wasn't the most exciting, crazy, shocking ending, but it worked.
Was what it was, yeah.
Yes, exactly. I don't have too many problems with it because I was satisfied with the match itself. So if they want to look like they want to continue it, fine. And just because we're not going to talk about it too much, I wanted to sort of just gloss over the continuation of that on Raw. How did you feel about that?
I honestly thought it was really stupid. The acting level needs to be a little bit higher if you're going to do something like that. One thing I did find really funny, though, is Zack Ryder tweeted at Daniel Bryan to watch himself, because if you take what happened there and then compare it to what was going on between Kane, John Cena, Zack Ryder, and Eve a couple years ago, it's pretty much the exact same feud.
Yeah, and see, they tried to play it like a horror movie, almost like they were doing a couple weeks ago, and it's just it made Daniel Bryan kind of look like a pussy, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And it's why are you so afraid? You just beat him last night. What is there to be afraid of?
But I think it's not that he's afraid for himself. I think wrestling logic-wise, he's afraid for his wife.
Yes, and that does make sense, but I mean, the fact that he can beat him in the match, he should be confident that he can protect her. I just think it was really cheesy the way they played it, and I know everyone was complaining about Brie Bella's screams.
Everything about it was just stupid. Even if you're running away from a person, why would you stop a car and wait for them to sit up and then drive away? It just makes no sense.
Yeah, so it was a sort of a lukewarm continuation of the feud. So there really isn't too much to talk about that. It looks just more like we've sort of got this division now with the Authority, where Stephanie is clearly focusing on Daniel Bryan and the Kane situation, while we have Triple H focusing on the Shield. So now let's get back into Extreme Rules and talk about what was my match of the night, which was the Shield. Yes, the Shield versus Evolution. So first, your thoughts on the match itself.
It was a solid match, just period, end of story. It was a really solid match. It's what you would expect from the Triple H, Randy Orton, Batista going against guys that have the potential of the Shield, the Dean Ambrose. There wasn't anybody in that match that didn't shine, and that's what makes it so good. Every combination just worked in that match.
And not to mention the fact that Triple H has not won a match this year. Just to let that sink in for everybody. Yeah, so I think clearly what everyone is going to be talking about with this match, though, was that insane dive by Seth Rollins.
Oh, totally. It was... what we were just talking about, things you don't expect to see anymore in this era of the WWE. That was totally one of them. That was shades of Jeff Hardy from back in the day.
It felt very Attitude Era-like, and a lot of people would even argue this pay-per-view was sort of a throwback to the Attitude Era, because it has been a while since we've seen a lot of backstage or an into-the-crowd type of brawls, and we got both of that on this show.
Even use of weapons, RVD did that 5-star onto the trash can in his match. When was the last time you saw something like that?
It's true. There's a lot of throwbacks. A lot of times you would see a spot like that, like RVD did, but everyone seems to conform to using chairs, so it was nice to see some trash cans in there and some other things. And yeah, back to the Shield versus Evolution, I really liked that build-up, that battle into the crowd. I don't think anyone was expecting Rollins to just dive out of nowhere. He was sort of up on some sort of rafter area.
You kind of expected it, though, just the way they were going down the stairs, and Rollins was still up there. I saw it coming personally, but that doesn't take away from it.
I didn't see it coming at all, so maybe I'm not I'm not as good as predicting spots, but and I believe if anyone wants to check out, you can probably find it on Squared Circle on Reddit. There was a fan video of someone who was right in that front row where Seth Rollins jumped, and it's a really cool perspective to see the guy. He just files through the crowd. There's just one security guard looking out for him. he just, without hesitation, just drops down there, like, no regard for how that was gonna go, just does it.
Exactly, and plus with the camera being on the ground level, you don't really realize how high of a jump that was, and that was a pretty big fall. Like, if he messed that up in any way and Batista or Triple H and Randy Orton couldn't catch him, that could have went real bad.
Yes, it was just amazing that, I'm gonna guess he didn't rehearse that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but it's sort of similar to how when Edge speared Jeff Hardy way back at WrestleMania 17.
Yeah, it was just a thing.
It's sort of one of those things where it's like, it's not worth practicing. Just do it because it's better it goes wrong once than more than once.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, speaking of things going wrong, I believe it's time for this week's Tweet of the Week!
That's right. It's we might have gotten rid of one, but you can't get rid of the money shot, baby. It's Tweet of the Week time. Now, once again, because I guess you could call it laziness / whatever, this week's Tweet of the Week is from r/squared circle. There was a lot of funny comments and stuff going on during Raw there. So this Tweet of the Week / post of the week is from Uncreative Team. Uncreative Team. And as follows: a Canadian wearing a turban just told 2 Puerto Ricans posing as Spaniards celebrating a Mexican holiday to speak English, and the crowd starts chanting USA.
Thank you, Keith, for that somewhat
Beautiful.
maybe amazing tweet or Reddit post of the week. And remember, if you want to be the tweet of the week, well, it's not that easy, but if you tweet during Raw and we see something funny that we like, you could very well be the tweet of the week. But as you can see,
really
our consistency...
just give me a reason to look at Twitter during Raw.
We have very high standards, so
Very.
you got to step your game up during Raw.
Unless you make jokes about, like, nationalities and stuff like that, because apparently I'm all over that shit.
I think, though, was it last week we might have actually had one of the first people who actually follow us to be Tweet of the Week. We didn't just dive into
something
creative
we like.
humor or something like that.
Shh, you're not supposed to tell them how
I know,
it
I'm giving away the gimmick here.
Secrets. It's all secrets.
But hey, that goes to show that it can happen.
It can be you.
So let's go. Let's just jump right into Raw. We've talked about a few things on Raw, but since we were just talking about the Shield versus Evolution, I sort of wanted to talk about what developments happened on Raw and where you think this is going.
So the big thing for me was that Batista was still there. I thought that Extreme Rules was going to be Batista's last night, but no, he's still there. I can see this moving towards a, still another 6-man tag match at Payback or something like that, and maybe it does move into the whole, three separate feuds thing, because even if Batista goes, they've set up Sheamus to kind of take Batista's spot if they want to, with the whole beating Dean Ambrose for the US title. So now he can kind of easily fit in there as Triple H's guy who beat the Shield and took Dean Ambrose's title.
Wow. I did not think of that.
Huh?
That is not a bad move. It would still seem a little weird to see Sheamus in Evolution.
But what is Evolution at this point? It's just
a
name.
mystery.
Yeah, full of changes that nobody sees. But what makes it full of mystery?
I don't know. Motorhead, maybe?
Maybe. But yeah, no, I think they set it up perfectly, especially if you know the history between Triple H and Sheamus, he could easily fit that role that Batista's doing.
That is a good point. So you fully expect there to be another 6-man tag at Payback?
Oh, totally.
Okay, and I think we could assume here that Evolution is probably going to get a win. And then maybe Batista may have to go, but we sort of separate into individual feuds. Maybe they find a way to have Sheamus involved, or maybe there's another young guy that they want to have sort of fill the old sort of Phil as the new, fresh, young guy.
I mean, if reports are to be believed, eventually this is going to end up at Triple H versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. So eventually they are going to have to diverge it into 3 separate feuds. Now, do you see the Shield being broken up before then, or do you think they're going to keep the Shield as a unit until that point?
Well, I think they're going to stay as a unit, because I could almost see this as sort of, if you were to look at the Shield versus Evolution as this sort of war, where it's like almost like who's going to get the most wins. Like if they do some sort of setup where Randy Orton's going to face Seth Rollins, Batista, if he's still there, and maybe he comes back for SummerSlam in August. Batista faces Dean Ambrose, and then you got Triple H versus Roman Reigns. So it's like, who's going to get 2 out of 3? They could do, that might be sort of an element that we haven't seen before. And I would
That's so weird, considering like a few weeks ago we were talking about them breaking up the Shield. Now,
yes,
it's like the complete opposite.
Yeah, I think they saw that there was so much left undone with these guys. And because of that, we have another faction versus faction feud. I mean, these things are so rare, and it's awesome that we get to see 2 happen so close together in time.
Yeah.
So
even 2 happen on the same night, really, on Raw, because there was a faction versus faction match, the Shield versus the Wyatts as the main event, where another faction came and interfered.
I mean, now this sort of dawned on me, but who wouldn't want to see in the future a triple feud of the Wyatts versus the Shield versus Evolution in just one insane match?
And eventually all roads lead to WCW, where everybody's part of a faction and they're all feuding with each other.
And then it's just completely out of control.
Exactly.
But yeah, I know we're talking way down the line here, but I would like to see that singles match, like those 3 separate singles matches, because we've almost seen them pair off a lot. Obviously, we see a lot of fighting between Triple H and Reigns, and we see that fighting between Rollins and Orton, and then whatever you want to call that move onto the steel steps, like laying him down. Were you going to bring that up?
That gentle lay onto the steps. But I know, even though I mentioned like a couple minutes ago about how like bringing Sheamus into the feud for replacing Batista, but I would really like to see Ambrose and Orton. Like, I would almost pray for that feud, just for the potential, like, psychology in that feud. I think it could be something that's amazing.
That would be awesome. I think there is a lot of potential right there with the psychology, like you were saying. And just to jump back to that terrible spine buster, that like reminded me of like my backyard wrestling days. Basically, like seriously, that was backyard quality spine buster.
Well, leave it to Batista.
I mean, he is better than that. Okay, I don't know whose fault that was, but they done fucked up, because that was awful. Like, come on, like, you're in WWE. Why are you making that look so freaking weak?
Especially when you're in the same match as Triple H, who does one of the best spine busters in the game. No pun intended.
It was just awful, but I think we're both happy to see that this feud is continuing. I mean, let's think about Extreme Rules here. Like, what feud is not continuing?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. The 3 main feuds, the 3 main threads right now are Cena Wyatt, which is probably going to continue. Kane, Daniel, Bryan, which is going to continue. There's reports right now that it's going to end up being a Buried Alive match at Payback, which could be the end of it. And then, the Shield and Wyatts are supposed to go till SummerSlam and potentially...
You mean Evolution?
Yes, the Shield and Evolution. Thank you. They're supposed to go to SummerSlam and potentially beyond. So maybe these are going to be 3 threads that keep going on or through the summer.
Mm-hmm. And maybe this has to do with the whole network thing, where people are committed for 6 months, so they don't have to be as afraid to want to continue things on and
so
be worried about... So
it's like seasons now. Now it's the same stories for like a 6-month span of time, and then when they need to resubscribe on the network, we get the new stories.
But if you think about it, they don't have to fear as much about buy rates pay-per-view to pay-per-view, so they can actually draw these out a little bit longer. And I think that's good. And I think we were talking about complaining about spending money on a pay-per-view and then nothing is definitive, and it's just it's basically an advertisement for next month. But I think they're effectively doing it here. Well, they're having satisfying matches with good conclusions, but also continuing the feud.
Yeah, and think about, like, around last fall when all of those things felt like filler pay-per-views until the next big one. They can afford to do that now and continue storylines. It doesn't need to be this weird ending to a barely built-up match that needs a conclusion.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the key factor is that this show delivered. It delivered really well. So if they want to continue feuds afterwards, I'm fine with it. The match quality was great, and that's what sold it.
Mm-hmm.
So one other thing we want to talk about that happened on Monday Night Raw was the debut of Adam Rose. So of course we had Zeb Coulter out there with Jack Swagger.
Did you think that Zeb was dancing for a minute there like I did? Like, the way he was just kind of juking around, I thought he was, like, gonna start dancing or something like that.
Yeah, that would have been the craziest twist in a segment and just made no sense, but it would have been hilarious.
Exactly.
So we had that whole deportation list that Zeb had, and it was kind of amusing. And then Adam Rose comes out. He basically calls Zeb a lemon.
Yeah.
Throws Jack Swagger out of the ring, has his party, and that's it.
And that's it. That's the debut of Adam Rose, folks.
So how would you describe his debut? Would you say it was good, or what are your thoughts?
It was a debut you expect from a character with a gimmick. You shouldn't really expect much that doesn't really build the character. He's there, they want people to adapt to who he is, kind of get a feel for him, and now probably he'll do that for a couple weeks and then have a match, go over on Jack Swagger, and then see where he goes from there. Like, think about Fandango. Fandango didn't wrestle for a couple months when he came in. It was just the whole, like, yeah, I'm gonna wrestle, but you screwed up my name, so no, we're not going to fight, in that exact accent. But yeah.
I think his debut was underwhelming.
Yeah?
I don't think there. I was like, wow, that's it. That was so
question.
quick.
I don't watch a lot of NXT, but wasn't that kind of his stick in NXT? Just come out, party, wrestle, leave, like arrive, party, wrestle, leave?
Yes, but I think they could have played into the segment a little more. It was just sort of, oh, you're a lemon, boom, boom, done, party. Mm-hmm. It was very, like, I didn't feel like we got to know the character at all anymore. I mean, I'm not expecting so much on one night. But
those vignettes, they played 2 of those vignettes before. What more do you need to know about the character that those vignettes didn't say?
I felt it was just like really quick, boom, done. Like, wow, that's it. That's just how I felt about it. Obviously, we get to see how this develops over time. But I mean, the crowd was already singing the theme immediately. Like, as soon as it stopped, they were already into it, so that's a
awesome.
good sign.
Yeah,
I like his character. I've seen his matches on NXT, and I like how he like Bray Wyatt works his gimmick into his match. Yeah, and I think that goes a long way for a character. Obviously, it's a much different way he works his gimmick into the match than Bray Wyatt, but I like to see that.
I just realized there's going to be a day, I don't know when it's going to be, but Adam Rose is going to have the greatest heel turn ever, where he's just partying, like, doing his whole stick, and then, like, everybody just stops. His whole, like, thing of groupies just stops and just starts, like, gang beating the living crap out of somebody. It's going to be the greatest heel turn potentially ever.
I would also like to see someone come out of that bunny suit and just be like imagine if Sting debuts by taking the
or like Chris Jericho or somebody like that.
That would be so freaking awesome. Chris Jericho would actually be like one of the perfect people to do that with. Yeah. And then you get a feud with Adam Rose and Chris Jericho or something. We get like sort of the suit Jericho or something where he comes back as a heel.
Or it could be RVD that like takes the bunny hat or the bunny like mask off, and then just like a cloud of smoke comes out of the bunny suit.
And then he does that like shoulder shrug thing that he does.
Exactly.
That picture. That would be awesome. So there's a lot of potential with his posse, and that would be cool. I mean, a lot of them are all just indie workers, or they're They're NXT
Yeah, or
talent.
just local
They're
people.
developmental. I think they're actually developmental talent, a lot of them.
Huh.
I might have even saw JTG in there. No, I don't know.
Gotta make it on TV once a year somehow.
Yeah, so I mean, hey,
We love
it's
you,
a good
JTG.
ride for his posse. I mean, they get to be on TV and learn a lot, so that's a good experience for them. And maybe we'll see more involvement with them in matches. Who knows?
They
But
have to be. If there's going to be so many people around the ring, it has to. Like wrestling rules, just straight up say, thou must interfere.
like if someone was gonna throw him out of the ring, like his posse will catch him and bring him back to the ring or something like that.
Yeah, just
So
like
there's a lot
inject a
of cool
needle
things.
into his opponent's neck and just make him trip balls or something like that.
And
We don't condone drug use on this show. Don't do drugs, kids.
I think that's a good note to end the show.
Yeah.
But before I do the outro, there's a topic I sort of want to plug that we're going to talk about next week because this is a really good topic, and we want to make sure we have Juan back before we talk about it.
We need the Puerto Rican to carry us, basically.
And, we love him, and we want to
No, we don't.
we want to involve him in this discussion because
Nah, he's all right.
just as a preface, we sort of saw what happened on Extreme Rules with the Big E versus Bray Wyatt. Big E versus Wade Barrett.
I'm afraid I've got some bad news. All the children are turning against you.
I got that mixed up because their initials are like it must have been like dyslexia.
Wait,
Wade Barrett,
Anyway,
Bray Wyatt. The
no digging
W
yourself
and the
out of this
B's
hole.
crossed. Anyway, a match we didn't talk about: Big E Langston. Oh, I'm sorry, just Big E versus Wade Barrett. We noticed the crowd was really just behind Wade Barrett, even though he's the heel, and Big E is completely cooled off, and nobody seemed to be interested. So what we want to talk about next week is what can WWE do to make a compelling babyface today? Because I think we've all noticed that crowds more and more are getting behind the heels. So we want to get into what do they need to do, what should they do, and what can they do to make a compelling babyface. So that'll be next week, so that's something to look forward to.
It'll be a hoot and a holler. Now,
Exactly.
Take us home, baby.
So, don't forget, as always, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast. Remember, our top 10 favorite wrestling video games. Great video, one of our best produced. Definitely worth checking out if you have not seen it yet. And you can also listen to last week's podcast to hear why we put which games where if you haven't heard that yet. And as always, we have the weekly filler that goes up every single Saturday, and our podcast episodes go up on YouTube every Thursday. Don't forget to also follow us on Twitter at ByteThatCast. We tweet during Raw, we tweet during pay-per-views, and we also tweet all week long. And lastly, the podcast can also be found on iTunes and Stitcher by searching Byte That. And if you would, please, if you listen to the show and you enjoy it, please write us a review on either of those, iTunes or Stitcher, because that really goes a long way and helps us out a lot. With all that being said, on behalf of myself and Keith, we will see you next week, and Juan will be back. So check it out, and see you next week.
Bye-bye.